Hello, readers, and welcome back to Tell Between Tales. Today, because I might have a little bit of a masochistic streak in me, we're going to talk about Jade War. Because even after Jade City, I decided that I needed to read Jade War. And I think I liked Jade War less than I liked Jade City, which is why I still haven't read Jade Legacy, which is on here. And I need to read that so I can get it off of airplane mode. It's been almost a year since I've read these books. I just needed that much time to process what's going on in these books because it's a lot, and it's not the typical fantasy that I usually read, but with the popularity of it and everybody recommending it, it was something that I wanted to pick up. And reading Jade War was like walking deeper into a beautifully constructed world that somehow manages to feel even more brutal and morally complex than its predecessor. The tone remains unapologetically dark, and once again, I found myself both impressed by the scope of the story and conflicted by where it took me emotionally. Let's discuss. So these books do contain strong language throughout. On my language meter, I'd probably give them a score of 4 out of 10. There's also a lot of graphic violence, everything from street fights to political assassinations. And so if you're sensitive to brutality in books, this is one that is quite dark. However, one of the highlights of this book that I really enjoyed was the world expansion. We get to move outside of Kekon and see all the political maneuvering that's going on outside. We're getting more involved with the world at large instead of isolated on just this island. We see this a lot through Andon's journey abroad, and his chapters were a welcome way to broaden the political and cultural scope of the Jade world, as well as allowing us a glimpse into what outsiders think of islanders and how Jade is used outside of Kekon. And the Kekonese societies built outside of Kekon often mirror the same social structure as we see on Kekon, except with less power. That said, many of the characters make deeply frustrating decisions. None more so than Shay. Shay really kind of drove me a bit crazy in this one because she does a lot of things that I feel like she should know better. She continues to pull on that thread from the first book about wanting to be involved without actually being involved. She insists on trying to live a life outside the clan while still being deeply enmeshed in its politics and everyday running of the clan. This felt, naive at best and selfish at worst, which is something that she definitely doesn't have, at least at the beginning of the book, the self-awareness to realize, as her this relationship that she is having with someone who is completely outside of the clan, puts him in a very dangerous position and allows others to use him to gain power over her and her family without him also being protected and receiving that same power and protection from the clan. Lee's writing remains very blunt as she portrays several intimate scenes where I kind of found that the only positive was they're easily skippable. You can notice when they start and skip, and then finish them up. And then there's Hilo. We gotta talk about Hilo. Gotta talk about everybody. But Hilo, at this point in the book, I found myself rooting for Hilo, right? I say we, but I can't assume that you think the same thing I do. So I wanted him to succeed. I wanted him to unify his family, outmaneuver the Mountain Clan, and to build something stronger out of all of that loss and all of the hardships that they've been going through. But Fonda Lee doesn't let us off that easy. Hilo makes an unforgivable choice that casts a long, dark shadow over any sense of triumph. In a moment of rage, he commits an act that, when stripped of emotion, reveals just how dangerous and cruel he can be. It's powerful writing, but it's also deeply unsettling, and we are left wondering if No Peak really is any better than any of the other clans. There are definitely portions of this book that I found deeply disturbing. There's an intimately romantic scene between Andon and another male character, which I honestly wish I could scrub from my brain, because at this point in time, we probably all know this is not what I like to read. And I naively went into this book thinking that these themes were going to remain at the level of the first book, and that they would kind of stay consistent in that regard throughout the second book. However, they are definitely much more developed and much more leaned into. And I feel like this is kind of really a problem because nobody is talking about it. And I picked this book up maybe like a year and a half ago now. It's been a little while. I've been processing for a while. And this was when I was just picking up books that people were recommending and not checking tags. And before I really became aware of how much homosexual content are in a lot of these books these days. And unfortunately, in a lot of the reviews that we get, nobody ever talks about them and nobody ever mentions it. So if it's something that you are looking to avoid, it's not something that you're going to be able to find out about on anybody's reviews, because a lot of it is not only accepted, but praised and expected at this point in time. And so I feel like I'm a little less naive nowadays, and I do a lot more homework on trying to figure out what exactly are in the books that I choose to pick up. But this one was something that definitely threw me for a loop. And I know that is on me because that is my preferred preference. And if it doesn't bother you, then that might not be something that you need to worry about. But for those who do want to know, that is in there. Now, circling back to focusing on Jade War, side rant over. So I was also struggling with the way that abortion was portrayed in this book. And I mean, my only criticisms really is just my own moral qualms, I suppose, because she does a very good job. Like everything that she writes is very consistent and fits in very well and makes sense for the characters and the story and the world that she has created. And I think that that's just my own dissonance with the morality of the world that she has created, because when it is discovered that this person is pregnant, it's really just, I'm going to have an abortion and that's that, because I just can't have a baby right now. And it left, I mean, it just sucks the emotion out of you, which is kind of the point of the story. It really lacked the emotional seriousness, it lacked consequences, and it really kind of focused more on the partner being like, hey, you didn't tell me that you were going to do this. Shame on you for not including me in this discussion, rather than focusing on the fallout of the choices that she made. And so for me, it felt like a little bit of a missed opportunity for deeper character development and a more balanced perspective. But then again, there's really nothing balanced about these books. They're definitely leaning heavily into the dark themes and the dark tones. And then, just like in Jade City, Jade War's ending, without being spoilery, is a complicated mix of triumph and heartbreak, underscoring that once again, in Janloon, victory here always comes with a cost. This book, like the one before it, left me in a strange place. I was fascinated, but I was upset, and I am still thinking about this book long after closing the final page. If you're drawn to morally gray characters, deeply political, violent fantasy worlds, there's so much to admire here. The themes, the world that she has created, the reality of it all, the what would you do in these situations, and how do you handle all of this, and the family drama and the way you get sucked into places and situations that maybe you don't want to be in, but now you're here, and what are you going to do about it? These are all deeply compelling, thought-provoking themes, but for me, it felt, for lack of a better word, a very sinful and dark environment, and that can be hard often to digest and to work through, especially when my preferred fantasy really seems to be much lighter and adventure focused. So let me know what your thoughts are on Jade War. I would absolutely love to hear about it from you guys, and let me know if you want me to read Jade Legacy and let you know how the whole trilogy wraps up as a whole. And I will talk to you next time.